what point of time you decided to structure the company and exit from the business?
That was at the end of 1989, 1990. I had sold the best part of the company in 1984 to America. Well,
Anyone advised you, or you decided yourself, this is the time I need to exit?
well, we had the opportunity that people would back or put money in the company. And, you know, to get to number one, you need to be able to finance it. And so to finance that, I was happy to sell shares in the company and give up ownership, because it didn't matter to me. It was a question of, well, okay, so I want to own the company. Would the company grow if it didn't have the finance? And we got the finance from, he was a British guy, you might know him, Stephen Rubin. He is Pentland Industries. He used to be Pentland Shipping, he used to be part of those as well. Pentland Industries, they actually worked in the Far East. They were a sourcing company in the Far East called ASCO, Associated Shoe Company. So they were in the Far East, they were sourcing there, and he could see Reebok was growing, so he was happy to give Reebok a credit line. But he needed some piece of the company. So he got a piece of the company and we got the credit line. And the credit line, it allowed Reebok to explode. If I hadn't have agreed to that, then would we have got the credit? I don't know. You know, and it was like with any market. If you drown because you can't satisfy the market, starving the market, Adidas and Nike would have come in. But we know we needed to get that production. So I was happy to hand the controls over. It doesn't matter to me. It was like, can we now get them? And we became number one. You know, and people say, do you regret that? And, well, you know, when you become number one, you know, what's to regret? So, you know, the alternative could.
So what was your mindset after exiting? See, all of a sudden you were busy, so passionate about your business.
Well,
all of a sudden you exit,
yeah.
You got enough money in the accounts, but for your passion is almost all of a sudden stops. What was the mindset? This happens to almost every businessman who, the time they exit, there's a period, no?
Well, it probably does, but I exited and I went to Tenerife. Tenerife is a nice island. The weather is beautiful.
Yeah.
Better than here because it's the same all year round. It's brilliant. And so I'm enjoying life sitting back. You know, when I exited, we didn't have a computer. We didn't have computers. We didn't have smartphones. Yeah. But when I'm in Tenerife, we get computers. We get smartphones. We get Wikipedia.
No, what was the mindset? Because you had nothing to do. You were relaxing. But was it a better time, or when you were busy with the business, that was better?
Maybe it's best to say that by the time I left, we were a big company.
Yeah.
And I was just waving the flag. I was more of an ambassador.
Yeah.
The challenge had gone.
Yeah.
And without
tensions
the challenge,
are gone.
Without the challenge, I needed to say, well, what am I doing here? Why am I still doing this? Why don't I do something else and just... So sitting back was nice. I mean, okay, I used to be at 35,000 feet. That was almost every week. And I thought, I don't need an airline ticket. Yeah. But then when I'd stopped, and I'm thinking, what's the next ticket? You know, why have I stopped? But it didn't matter. It was nice to sit back and watch the brand. It was, you know, the brand was number one. So it was nice to do that. As I said, but then we got computers, and then we got Wikipedia, and we got Google. And Wikipedia and Google are telling me how Reebok started. And I'm saying, no, it's not how Reebok started. They were inventing this. There was also a photograph of Joe Foster. And he may have been called Joe Foster, but he said, Joe Foster, founder of Reebok. It wasn't me. And that brought me into writing the book. So I thought, I put up with that for some time.
So when did you decide to write this, the ShoeMaker, right? That is your book name.
ShoeMaker, that's right.
Yeah, so when did you decide?
That's when I'm in Tenerife. I'm in Tenerife and I'm thinking, no, we've got to put this straight, you know, we've got to get the story straight. Yeah. So I started writing ShoeMaker. It took about 3 to 4 years to write the book, rewrite the book, have somebody help me to colour it in, to make it a bit, to do whatever. And so it took 3 or 4. And that was quite an adventure, writing the book. And so eventually we got the book out, and I say then the universities, they picked up on it, and they said to me, Joe, that's, you know...
How many universities are using this as a
How many
research
universities? We must have 4 or 5 universities that we... 5? 10?
5.
5. We went to 5 universities, yeah. And we've been... Was it here we came to the... What university was it here?
London Business School.
London Business School.
So what was the first reaction from your wife when you decided, you said, okay, I'm going to quit the business, I'm going to come out of the business? What was the first feedback?
You say from my wife?
Yeah, reaction.
Reaction when he came out of the business?
When you presented the exit plan?
I think, well, you know, she was when we started from nothing, and she did tell me in those early days, why don't you get a proper job? But then when we started to go to Monte Carlo for the Monte Carlo tournaments that we put on, and she could come round to that, yeah, she had a different attitude then. And you know, once you've got a bit of money and you're all right, you're comfortable, you know, that was okay. There was no problem. But unfortunately, we didn't see eye to eye. I did divorce my first wife, because Julie is my second wife. She knows more about the company than I do these days, yes. But she was happy enough, I think. But okay, so we divorced, and you know, we'd gone separate ways. Maybe, because people do ask, you know, how do you run a company and have a good relationship? Well, unless you're both involved, unless the people involved with you, you don't have a relationship. Because if the company needs attention, you've got to give it attention. You can't say, no, I'm away this weekend with my family. You've got to give the company attention, which you do. And it's like, my son was born at the beginning of February. Yeah. At the beginning of February every year, I was away in Chicago at the NSGA show. They wouldn't change Chicago wouldn't change their dates because my son had his birthday during that time. And so these things, you know, they do cause stress, they do cause strains, but I guess again...
So after writing the book, what was the journey?
After writing the book?
Yeah.
After writing the book and
because you regularly give talks, you go around the world meeting people, interviews.
We go to speaking events, and it's quite interesting. We're meeting a lot of different people, and fortunately, Reebok has a good story. Mm-hmm. It could start from my grandfather. It has a good story. Do you remember Chariots of Fire?
Yeah.
Film Chariots of Fire?
I know.
My grandfather made the shoes for the guys who got the gold medals.
Oh, great.
Harold Abrahams and Eric Little. They were the 2 athletes. There was also Lord Burleigh, but he got his medal in 28. 1924, which we've just gone 100 years past. It was in Paris. They won the gold medals in Paris, and they became immortalized in the film. So that's a story. That's part of the J.W. Foster story, part of the Reebok history, that we can go back, the tradition, because it says it's on the inside. We used to, it doesn't say on every inside label. You know, these are the athlete shoe from a tradition that goes back over 100 years. And you know, that's what we have with Reebok. And Adidas have a history that goes back, but they don't have that history.
So normally, what is the reaction of sports celebrities when they see the Reebok co-founder?
I don't know if sports celebrities find us as interesting.
Because they all were wearing this particular shoe at their...
A lot of people wearing the shoe, and that's nice, yes.
Yeah.
And it was good. I mean, I knew a lot of the sports people when I was involved. I'm not involved, so I don't know who's wearing Reebok these days. Okay. You know, but I mean, Reebok, you know, the pump, when the pump came out, that really gave a lot of exposure for Reebok. And there was a big fight between Reebok and Nike. Mm-hmm. You know, it's amazing. So, you know, and Reebok
was it a healthy fight or?
There was a bit. I think Phil Knight got upset because Reebok overtook Nike. Okay. And Nike had a spell when instead of keep on growing, they just dipped, and they had too much inventory.
Okay.
And so this is when Reebok sort of took on. And the press would sort of talk to Paul Feynman and say, well, what do you think about Nike? You know, so he'd make some comment that would not help Phil Knight.
So how was the merging of Adidas with Reebok? How long it took for the merging?
A bit of a disaster, because Adidas, instead of keeping the companies separate, they really put them together. So all the back rooms, everything was together, and everything, and they really stopped selling Reebok. You know, they didn't want Reebok really. They wanted the asset. The asset was the agreements they had in America, because they had agreements with the NFL and the NBA. They had a lot of agreements in America. That's what Adidas wanted. So that's what Adidas bought. They switched them from Reebok to Adidas. It didn't last very long, but that's what they did. I guess that buying Reebok did help them in America, but that's all they wanted. And it was what, now 3 years, 2 years, just over 2 years ago, since Authentic Brands Group bought Reebok off Adidas. Reebok is coming back.
So what was your entire staff strength at the time of exit? Total staff?
What is?
Total number of people working in Reebok while you were exiting?
I have no idea. It's in the thousands, but right now it is licensed. So that you've got the headquarters in Boston, but everything is licensed. Even in America, the distribution is licensed. They don't even look after their own distribution in America. And it's licensed throughout globally. It's licensed. So
how many factories were there that time? In which all countries manufacturing was?
Again, I wasn't involved in manufacturing at that point. I was more involved in marketing, sales, and promoting. So you've got a whole team. One of the reasons I left is that you had a whole team of people on marketing, a whole team of solicitors, a whole team of accountants. You know, they've got so many people involved that you're not hands-on on anything. You know,
it became so big, huh?
It gets so big. You're not hands-on. You know, that's somebody else's job. And you know, why get hands-on? And again, you know, it's just the challenge. So I'm interested more in the challenge, and the challenge was to write the book. And now the challenge is with the book is going around and meeting people.
So after that, did you try for any other new brand or something to get developed?
Oh, not really. I mean, you can think, well, why don't you do like an entrepreneur and put your money in and buy something else? It's difficult to do that once you've sort of
how you relax yourself, or how you spend your time nowadays?
We don't have much time. We're always
traveling all around.
We're always traveling and talking and meeting gentlemen like you. It's it's so we don't have too much spare time, and when we do, we actually go out walking. And the beautiful thing is now we have malls. And the malls are beautiful to walk in. So we can walk around a mall, and I can get my 5,000 or 10,000 steps in just walking in a mall. And you know, we just been in Bangkok. And Bangkok, we love Bangkok. They've got more malls in Bangkok than they have here. But the streets, the sidewalks, they're terrible. So I've got a new knee, I've got a new hip, and in 4 months' time I shall be 90. So my walking is not as good as it was like 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. It's a lot more difficult. But when you're in a mall, it's great.
Okay, our interview is coming to last portion. Before that, can you mention one particular incident, a big crisis or something you faced in the business, and how you overcome it? Because this should be a guideline for the next generation. Because all business people, they may face a problem. How they can recover from that one financially and mentally?
When we were small, we had a lot of problems, and so we had a lot of legal things. And I thought, when we get big, we won't have that. Unfortunately, the bigger you get, the more legal aid you want, the more of everything you seem to need. But I guess you don't have the disasters that you have them when you're small. When we were small, and we got the name Reebok, what we had to do is to register that name globally. And registering a name globally costs a lot of money. We didn't have the money, but we had to have this because we had a name. So we told the registrar or the agent, okay, we'll have to register that, but you know, it'll be difficult. However, it was difficult, and although we'd got us our name, he actually put a winding up order against us because we didn't pay him within a certain period of time. And that would have been a disaster because a winding up order would have just taken us totally out. So I went to see in fact, I was introduced to a solicitor by our accountant. And the solicitor, he got us out of it. You know, because we'd made offers, we'd made sort of down payments and whatever to the agent. And so he got that winding up order got thrown out, and they had to accept our payment program. Now, the thing is, of course, our solicitor needed paying. But the solicitor, and he was with me for many, many years, he didn't invoice me for 12 months. Because he knew, no point in saying, giving me an invoice. We didn't have the money. So that was a big, big moment. That was a desperate moment at that time. So it was good to have a friend who stayed with me all the way through. In fact, intellectual property was his skill. And he did all the agreements that we had when I was on the company fully. He did all our agreements. So that was one. And the other one was, like I say, when the distributor went out of business, and we lost all our business went. That again was a big moment where we had to think fast, we had to do something, and we had to go and change our ideas, and we started to sell direct. We'd sold direct before, but we had to go selling direct. And we went to schools, and we sold our product into the schools. So we went to the PE teacher, the physical education teacher, and he sold them to the kids. And they were getting the Reebok shoes at half price. But we were still getting more money than we were getting from the distributor, because he got it less than half price. So we actually, in a way, we won, and it was, okay, we can do this. And of course, we very soon ran through all the shoes that I brought back. So we had to make them. We started making the shoes for the schools. And, so it's thinking about how can you do something? Had the bank got word that we just lost our distribution, he would have just pulled the plug on us, I'm sure, but he didn't know any different. And so those were the two really serious moments of time when Reebok could have just gone out of business.
Okay, one personal question, because you are a man who witnessed the Second World War. Can you brief something about those days? What was the experience? Any of your close relatives where they lost their lives in the war? What was the memory?
In the Second World War?
In the Second World War.
Well, I think I mentioned this earlier. Whilst I lived through the Second World War, in 1939 I was only 4. And in 1945 I was 10. And I was just a kid.
Any memory?
Oh, a lot of memories, yes. We had a lot of I can remember those area wars, the sirens going. I can remember that. Going.
Any bombing incidents?
The nearest bomb to where we lived, we were 10 miles away from Manchester. Manchester had a port that was being bombed all the time. And where we were slightly elevated, so from the bedroom windows, you could look out and you could see the red glow of the bombs having dropped on Manchester. And the nearest one to us would be about 50 meters away from the small factory of J.W. Foster's. And it fell on a chip shop. You know what a chip shop is, a fish and chip? And it killed everybody in the chip. It also blew all the window in on the Foster's factory.
Did you see the army trucks going across the roads? Something was like that? Nothing?
Nothing, no.
Nothing,
no.
okay.
But where we lived was on the edge of, they call the moors.
Okay.
The edge of the
So it was not a war field?
No, on the edge of the countryside. And this would be probably 1944, just before the D-Day. They obviously were gathering arms ready to go. And just outside Bolton was a road that must be about, 400 yards? 400 meters long? At least 400 meters. And there was housing on one side and nothing on the other. And there was just tanks all backed in, all the way up. And there were trees, so there'd be, and then of course they had some sort of...
Do you remember anything about the end of the war, like the the dropping the nuclear bomb in the
I remember
any
that,
news
'cause
but
that was the end. I remember that.
you remember those days, okay.
Oh, I remember those days. Yeah, because okay, we had
But a lot of
newspapers.
people died, no? Any of your close relatives or
A lot of people died, but you didn't get news that quickly. Okay, we had radio,
okay.
but that was all. We had radio. You didn't have television, so we had radio and we had newspapers.
So as a child, you were used to listen what is going on in the war through the radio.
Well, I think the radio itself was more interested in the fact that this was bringing the war to an end,
Okay.
rather than the humanitarian problem. You know, the Japanese were not for surrendering, but this just changed the mind totally when the atom bombs landed in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Nagasaki. But we would only read that in the newspaper.
So as a kid, what was your mindset about Germans? Because Germans were conquering all Europe, no, that time. So
Yeah, well, I think you obviously had Hitler was sort of a big enemy, and the Germans were the enemy. But I don't know. You never felt threatened. You know, we were.
there was no scarcity for food.
Oh, we were okay for food.
We were okay. Okay.
Okay, there was rationing,
Yeah.
but I think you've got to.
So UK was not that much affected like what Russia was facing that time.
Yeah, I mean, our parents obviously must have put two and two together. As children, we didn't really
Okay.
do. You know, this was to us. This was normal.
Okay. Okay.
You know, when you
School days, nothing
no
affected.
school.
Okay.
There was no school.
No school also.
No school. The school had been taken over as they call them ARPs, air raid posts.
Well, during the entire Second World War, there was no school functioning.
No
Okay.
schools, because all the teachers
They all went for the war.
were all
Okay.
taken to the war.
Oh, okay.
yes.
Okay.
So there was no teachers. We did, on occasions, have some little bits of education from the women teachers who were still around,
Okay.
and they would teach you in the house. So you go to the house, and I think that was just sort of arrangements made by your parents to go to somebody's house. But until 1945, possibly just before the war ended, because once the Allies had occupied France, and it was obvious that the Germans were going to be overrun and whatever, I think the schools started to reopen again. But we didn't have any education for 6 years.
So now, in which part of UK you are staying? Right now, you are staying in which part of UK?
Manchester really is the nearest place. We were 10 miles sort of east of Manchester,
Okay.
more into the Pennines, so just beginning of the moorland.
Okay.
So we were well away from bombing and things like that. Well, even though we had all the air raids and everybody's garden, everybody's backyard, back here had an air raid shelter built in there for in case the bombers were going to come to you. But I think we had more of a romantic feeling about war than a bad feeling. It was like, the things you did with no lights on, because it didn't have lights. Street lighting was totally out. Everything was totally black.
Okay.
And so it was, and you were kids, so you just...
So what about the heating system during winter?
Heating system?
Yeah.
You never had a heating system in those days. You had a coal fire.
Okay.
And everybody had to sit around the coal fire and keep warm.
Okay.
There were no heating systems, no.
Okay.
Everything was... I mean, nowadays, yes, everybody's got central heating and you name it, you've got heating and cooling or whatever. No, there was no heating system in those. But, it's like, when you're young, that is what you know nothing else. You have nothing to compare it with.
So you experienced everything.
Yeah.
In the
that
life.
is day to day, that's your experience. You can't relate to, anything that happened in peacetime, because I would say I was only 4 when the war.
When you look back, any regrets in life or anything you could not achieve or something?
Well, I think we all have certain regrets, but you got to. It's too few to worry about, too few to mention, and I think probably one of my biggest regrets is Jeff having. He never saw what Reebok even started to become. We'd just gone into America, and that was just the start. And he could have had no idea at that time that we would grow, we would become number one.
Great. Anyway, it was a great interview. what is the message you want to give to the youngsters who want to become entrepreneurs, or who want to launch brands like Reebok in future?
Well, my message to anybody is whatever you go into, make sure you're going to have fun. Make sure it's going to be real. If it's not fun, it's going to be, you're probably not going to succeed in today's world. You need to think of it. Even the problems you've got to look at those as opportunities and think how you can, you need somebody to give you some problems, to give you some opportunities. But I think one of the important things that you do need is discipline. You need discipline. And we got that through the scouting organization and through being in the forces. Both Jeff and I got the discipline from doing that. And I think you need that discipline. You've got to get up in the morning. You've got to go. You've got to do the things. You've got to face the problems, no matter how long.
Okay.
And you've got to be willing to keep working at it. Just keep working at it. Your time will come.
Okay.
But you've got to be willing. And it does help for enjoying it.
Great. Thank you so much, because this particular interview matters a lot, because we are going to make this video cut into small, because nowadays youngsters, they are preferring reels, 1 minute videos, 5 minutes videos, and then we will surely cut into your messages. We will cut into small videos. We will surely share you.
Brilliant.
And also, this is something can be used for ages. Actually, it's a reference material. The message from legends like you, it will matters a lot. Normally, for AIMRI's industrial doctorate program, we need, everyone has to write a biography, but you already wrote your biography.
Yes.
But this is something additional, the video biography. That is for, because new generations, they prefer video format than the printer format, because they don't have time to read the books. But the video matters a lot, and this will be a real asset for them.
Well, we found that the book, of course, you can buy the book or you can buy the audio.
Yeah. And also, we will convert this into the book format also. So you will have the biography in the printed format also. But anyway, thank you very much for traveling all the way to Dubai to be a part of our event.
It's an absolute pleasure. We love Dubai, and we enjoyed it yesterday. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for motivating the entire viewers. Thank you.
An absolute pleasure. Delighted.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.